In the rain-soaked streets of the Bronx, Dr. Helena Voss's murder seemed like another tragic robbery gone wrong. The crime scene told a clear story. Forced entry, ransacked office, a respected psychologist in the wrong place at the wrong time. But hidden beneath her desk lay a piece of evidence that would shatter this narrative completely. A colorful drawing made by tiny hands would reveal that someone very close to Dr. Voss had orchestrated her death with chilling precision. The November rain hammered against the windows of 447 East 149th Street like an angry fist demanding entry. Detective Iris Blackwood pulled her coat tighter as she stepped out of her unmarked sedan, the neon glow of a nearby bodega casting eerie shadows across the wet pavement. The Bronx had a way of making even the most routine calls feel ominous, but something about this particular Tuesday evening felt different, heavy, like the air itself was holding its breath. The call had come in at 6:47 p.m. "Possible homicide at the Wellness Center for Children," the dispatcher had said, her voice crackling through the radio with practiced detachment. Dr. Helena Voss, age 42, found deceased by her evening receptionist. Iris had worked homicide in the South Bronx for 8 years, long enough to know that death rarely announced itself with such theatrical timing. But as she climbed the narrow stairs to the third-floor office, the familiar weight of her badge against her chest felt heavier than usual. The building's fluorescent lights flickered intermittently, casting dancing shadows on walls decorated with cheerful children's artwork, a jarring contrast to the police tape now sealing off the end of the hallway. Officer Martinez met her at the door, his young face pale under the harsh lighting. "Detective Blackwood, thank God you're here. This one's different." "They always are, Martinez. Walk me through it." The office door hung open, revealing a scene that seemed almost choreographed in its chaos. Desk drawers had been yanked out and overturned, their contents scattered across the hardwood floor like confetti after a violent celebration. Papers, pens, and personal items created a maze of debris that spoke of desperate searching. The victim's purse lay empty near the window, its contents spread in a fan pattern that suggested hurried hands looking for something valuable. Dr. Helena Voss lay behind her desk, face down, arms outstretched, as if she had tried to crawl toward the door. Even in death, she maintained an air of dignity, her silver hair still perfectly styled, her navy blue blazer unwrinkled despite the violence that had taken her life. But it was the dark pool spreading beneath her head that told the real story. Blunt force trauma, Iris noted mentally. Single blow to the back of the skull. Receptionist found her around 6:30. Martinez continued, consulting his notepad. Name's Carmen. Rodriguez. She'd left early for a dentist appointment, came back to grab some files she'd forgotten. Door was unlocked, which she says was unusual for this time of evening. Iris nodded, her trained eyes already cataloguing the scene. Everything about it screamed robbery gone wrong. The ransacked office, the empty purse, the victim's expensive jewelry missing from her fingers. Too clean, too obvious. In her experience, real robberies were messier, more chaotic. This felt performed. She was about to voice this observation when something caught her eye. There, partially hidden beneath the overturned desk, a splash of color stood out against the monochrome chaos. Iris crouched down, careful not to disturb the scene, and peered closer. It was a drawing, a child's drawing, rendered in the bold, unrestrained strokes that only come from young hands holding crayons too big for their grip. The paper was standard construction paper, the kind found in any elementary school, art room. But what it depicted made Iris's breath catch in her throat. "Martinez, you see this?" "See what, detective?" Iris pointed to the drawing without touching it. "Get me some gloves and an evidence bag. Now." The artwork showed what appeared to be a room. This room, Iris realized with growing unease. A brown rectangle that could be the desk, green squiggles that might represent the plants on the windowsill, and stick figures scattered throughout. But it was the details that made her skin crawl. One figure lay on the ground, drawn in red crayon with exaggerated care. Another figure stood over it, this one larger, more detailed, wearing what looked like a white coat. But most disturbing of all was a third figure, smaller than the others, tucked into what appeared to be a corner of the room. This figure was drawn in bright yellow, with careful attention paid to its hiding spot behind what looked like a door. "Detective?" Martinez had returned with the requested items, but his voice seemed to come from very far away. Iris slipped on the latex gloves and carefully extracted the drawing from beneath the desk. As she held it up to the light, more details became apparent. The standing figure, the one in white, had been drawn with unusual precision for a child's artwork. The face, while still rendered in simple lines, showed clear intent. This wasn't random scribbling. This was documentation. "Martinez, I need you to canvass the building. Again. Find out if anyone saw children in this office today. Check with the other tenants, security cameras if they exist. Anyone who might have noticed kids coming or going." "You think a kid witnessed this?" Iris studied the drawing more carefully. In the corner, almost invisible unless you knew to look for it, was a tiny signature. The letters were shaky, clearly written by someone still learning to form words. "Tommy, I don't think Martinez. I know." She sealed the drawing in the evidence bag, her mind already racing. "And if I'm right, we're not looking at a robbery gone wrong. We're looking at something much more calculated, something that someone worked very hard to make look like a robbery gone wrong." The rain continued its assault on the windows, but inside the office a different kind of storm was brewing. Iris Blackwood had solved dozens of murders in her career, but she'd never had a witness quite like this one. A witness who communicated not through words but through crayons. A witness who had seen everything and, in their innocent way, had documented the truth with startling clarity. As she prepared to leave the scene, Iris took one last look around the ransacked office. Someone had gone to great lengths to stage this crime to make it appear random and opportunistic, but they had made one crucial mistake. They had forgotten that children see everything, and sometimes they draw what they see. The fluorescent lights of the 44th Precinct buzzed with the same relentless energy that seemed to pulse through Detective Iris Blackwood's veins at 3 a.m. She sat at her cluttered desk, surrounded by crime scene photos, witness statements, and the carefully preserved drawing that had turned a straightforward robbery case into something far more complex. The coffee in her ceramic mug had long since gone cold, but she barely noticed. Her mind was elsewhere, passing through the details of Dr. Helena Voss's life. Like an archaeologist uncovering ancient secrets, Iris had earned her reputation as the precinct's most methodical detective through cases just like this one. Crimes that appeared simple on the surface, but revealed layers of complexity the deeper you dug. At 34, she had already closed more homicide cases than detectives with twice her experience, not through luck or intuition, but through an almost obsessive attention to detail that her colleagues both admired and found slightly unsettling. The victim's life, laid out across manila folders and computer screens, painted a picture of contradiction. Dr. Helena Voss was, by all accounts, a pillar of the community. Her practice specialized in treating children who had experienced trauma, abuse, neglect, violence. She had published papers on childhood psychology, testified as an expert witness in family court cases, and maintained an impeccable reputation among her peers. The kind of person who died of natural causes at 90, surrounded by grateful former patients and their families. Yet here she was, murdered in her own office on a Tuesday evening, leaving behind more questions than answers. Iris picked up the victim's appointment book, its pages filled with the careful handwriting of a woman who valued order and precision. Tuesday's schedule showed 5 appointments, ending at 4 p.m. with Tommy C. trauma session. The appointment was marked with a small star, indicating it was a particularly sensitive case. But according to the receptionist, Carmen Rodriguez, Tommy's session had been moved to 5 p.m. due to his mother's work schedule. Interesting timing, Iris muttered to herself, making a note in her case file. The murder had occurred sometime between 5:30 and 6:30 p.m., placing Tommy's session right in the window of opportunity. Detective Ray Morgan, her partner for the past 3 years, arrived with fresh coffee and the weary expression of someone who had spent his night chasing down leads in the less savory parts of the Bronx. Ray was everything Iris wasn't: intuitive where she was analytical, social where she was reserved, quick to trust where she was perpetually suspicious. Somehow it worked. "Tell me you found something useful," he said, setting a steaming cup on her desk, "because I've spent the last 6 hours learning more about the drug trade on 149th Street than I ever wanted to know. Better than that, I found our first real suspect." Iris pulled up a file on her computer screen. Marcus Sterling, 41, CEO of Sterling Development Group. His son, Michael, has been seeing Dr. Voss for the past 8 months. Ray leaned over her shoulder to read the screen. "What's the kid in therapy for?" "According to the intake forms, behavioral issues following his parents' divorce. But here's where it gets interesting." Iris highlighted a section of text. Sterling's company is currently under investigation by the State Attorney's Office for bid rigging on city construction contracts, the kind of investigation that could send him to prison for 20 years. And Dr. Voss would have had access to whatever the kid told her about his home life. Exactly. Therapist-patient privilege doesn't apply when child welfare is concerned. If Michael had told her about anything illegal happening at home, drugs, violence, witness intimidation, she would have been legally obligated to report it. Ray whistled. Low. That's motive. What about opportunity? Iris flipped through another folder. Sterling has a key to the building. His ex-wife, Jennifer, works for the property management company that owns the wellness center. He's been there multiple times to pick up Michael from sessions. And alibis. Claims he was in a business meeting until 7 p.m., but I've already found inconsistencies in his story. His secretary says the meeting ended at 5:15. Ray settled into the chair across from her desk, his expression growing more serious. What about the other suspects? Dr. Nathan Pierce. Iris opened another file. 47, child psychologist with a practice 6 blocks away. He and Dr. Voss have a history. The file revealed a complicated professional relationship that had soured over the years. Dr. Pierce had once been Dr. Voss's mentor, training her when she first arrived in New York fresh from graduate school. But success had driven a wedge between them. As doctor, Voss's reputation grew. She had begun attracting the high-profile cases that Dr. Pierce had once monopolized. Wealthy families, court-referred cases, consultation work with the city, all lucrative opportunities that had gradually shifted from his practice to hers. Professional jealousy, Ray asked. More than that, Pierce has been struggling financially. His practice is hemorrhaging patients, and he's behind on rent for his office space. I found collection notices in his background. Check. Opportunity? He knew her schedule, knew the building layout. They'd worked together on several cases over the years, so his presence wouldn't have seemed unusual to anyone who saw him. Iris stood and walked to the evidence board she'd assembled on the far wall of the squad room. Photos of the crime scene were arranged in careful chronology, connected by red string to witness statements and timeline markers. At the center of it all was a high-resolution scan of Tommy's drawing blown up to reveal details that weren't visible to the naked eye. But here's what's bothering me, she continued, pointing to the drawing. Look at this figure here, the one standing over the victim. See how carefully it's drawn? This isn't random scribbling. This child was paying attention, documenting what he saw with remarkable accuracy. Ray joined her at the board. What are you thinking? I'm thinking our killer made a crucial mistake. They assumed they could stage this scene, make it look like a robbery and no one would question it, but they didn't account for an audience. The drawing seemed to pulse with meaning under the harsh fluorescent lights. Every line, every choice of color, every detail told a story that contradicted the official narrative of a robbery gone wrong. The figure in white. Was that significant? Did the killer wear a lab coat, trying to blend in with the medical environment? Or was it something else entirely? We need to talk to Tommy, Iris said finally, but carefully. If he witnessed this murder, he might be in danger. And if the killer realizes that Tommy saw everything, she didn't need to finish the sentence. Both detectives understood the implications. A 7-year-old child was now the key to solving a murder, and that made him either the most important witness they'd ever had, or the next potential victim. As dawn began to break over the Bronx, casting long shadows through the precinct windows, Iris felt the familiar surge of adrenaline that came with a case that was about to break wide open. She had suspects, motives, and opportunities, but most importantly, she had Tommy's drawing, a piece of evidence that would either solve the case or get them all killed trying. The hunt for Dr. Helena Voss's killer was just beginning. The Chen family lived in a modest 2-bedroom apartment on Morris Avenue, where the sounds of the city filtered through thin walls, and the smell of Sophia Chen's homemade dumplings competed with the exhaust fumes from the street below. Detective Iris Blackwood stood outside apartment 4B, studying the cheerful drawing of a rainbow that had been taped to the door. Clearly Tommy's work, she noted, recognizing the same bold crayon strokes from the evidence now secured in the precinct. When Sophia Chen opened the door, Iris immediately understood why Dr. Voss had taken special care with this family. Sophia's eyes held the weary caution of someone who had seen too much, survived too much. She was younger than Iris had expected, probably in her late 20s, with calloused hands that spoke of long hours at manual labor jobs. But it was the protective way she positioned herself in the doorway, creating a barrier between the detective and whatever lay beyond. That told the real story. "Mrs. Chen, I'm Detective Blackwood. We spoke on the phone about Tommy's session yesterday." Sophia's grip tightened on the doorframe. "Tommy didn't do anything wrong. He's a good boy." "I know he is. I'm not here because he's in trouble. I need his help understanding what happened to Dr. Voss." The apartment was small, but meticulously clean, filled with the kind of second-hand furniture that had been carefully chosen and lovingly maintained. Children's artwork covered every available wall space, not just Tommy's, but drawings from what appeared to be neighborhood kids, creating a gallery of innocent expression that stood in stark contrast to the reason for Iris's visit. Tommy sat at a small table near the window, coloring in a superhero coloring book with the same intense concentration that Iris had witnessed in crime scene photos. He was smaller than she had expected, with his mother's dark eyes and a serious expression that seemed too old for his 7 years. When he looked up at her, Iris felt a familiar pang, the recognition of a child who had seen things no child should see. "Tommy, this is Detective Blackwood," Sophia said gently. "She wants to ask you about yesterday." Child witnesses required a delicate touch, something Iris had learned through both training and hard experience. You couldn't interrogate a 7-year-old the way you would an adult suspect. Instead, you had to enter their world, speak their language, earn their trust through patience and understanding. "I like your drawings," Iris said, settling into a chair across from Tommy. "Your mom has them. Everywhere. You're really talented." Tommy's face brightened slightly, but he remained cautious. "Dr. Voss says drawing helps me remember good things instead of bad things." The past tense hit Iris like a physical blow. Someone had already told him about Dr. Voss's death, which complicated her job considerably. "What kind of good things do you like to draw?" "Animals. My mom. Sometimes the park when it's sunny." Tommy picked up a green crayon and began adding grass to his superhero. Scene. "Dr. Voss said drawing bad things is okay too if it helps them go away." Iris glanced at Sophia, who nodded almost imperceptibly. They both understood that this conversation was as much about therapy as investigation. "Tommy, do you remember being at Dr. Voss's office yesterday?" The boy's hand stilled on the crayon. "I drew a picture there, but I left it. I found your picture. You signed it Tommy at the bottom." Iris pulled out a photocopy of the drawing, not the original, which was too important as evidence, but a clear reproduction that showed every detail. "Can you tell me about this picture?" Tommy studied the drawing with the serious attention of an art critic examining a masterpiece. "That's the room where I talked to Dr. Voss. That's her desk and those are her plants." "What about these people?" Iris pointed to the stick figures scattered throughout the scene. "That's Dr. Voss," Tommy said, indicating the red figure on the ground. "She was sleeping, but not regular sleeping, the kind of sleeping where you don't wake up." Sophia's breath caught audibly, but Iris remained focused on Tommy. "And this person?" She indicated the larger figure standing over Dr. Voss. Tommy's expression grew troubled. "That's the person who made Dr. Voss go to sleep forever. They wore doctor clothes like Dr. Pierce sometimes wears, but it wasn't Dr. Pierce." "How do you know it wasn't Dr. Pierce?" "Because this person smelled different, like the soap my mum uses for washing dishes, but stronger, and they had different shoes. Dr. Pierce always wears the shoes that click when he walks." The specificity of Tommy's observations was remarkable. Child witnesses often noticed details that adults overlooked, but Tommy seemed to possess an almost supernatural ability to catalogue his environment. Iris made careful notes as he continued. "This little person," Tommy pointed to the yellow figure in the corner, "that's me. I was hiding in the bathroom because I got scared when I heard Dr. Voss making noise." "What kind of noise?" "Like when my mom drops something heavy in the kitchen, and then she says words I'm not supposed to repeat." Iris felt her pulse quicken. "Tommy, did you see the person who hurt Dr. Voss?" The boy nodded solemnly. "I saw them through the crack in the bathroom door, but I was supposed to be invisible, so I didn't come out." "Invisible?" Sophia leaned forward to explain. "It's a coping mechanism Dr. Voss taught him. When Tommy gets scared or overwhelmed, he pretends to be invisible until the scary thing goes away." "Can you tell me more about what this person looked like?" Iris asked gently. Tommy closed his eyes, as if replaying a movie in his mind. "Tall like my mom, but not as tall as you. They had yellow hair, but not real yellow like mine in the picture. The kind of yellow that comes from a bottle, like Mrs. Garcia in 3A. Dyed blonde hair." Iris made another note. "Anything else?" They kept looking at their watch, and they moved all of Dr. Voss's papers around, like they were looking for something special. Did they find what they were looking for? Tommy shrugged. I think so. They took something from Dr. Voss's desk and put it in their pocket. Something small and white. A flash drive, perhaps? Or documents? Iris filed this information away for later investigation. Tommy, this is very important. Did this person see you? The boy's face grew pale. I don't think so. But when they were leaving, they stopped at the bathroom door. I could see their shoes under the crack. They stood there for a really long time, like they were listening. Sophia reached for her son's hand, her maternal instincts clearly alarmed by this revelation. Tommy, why didn't you tell me this yesterday? You always say I should try to forget bad dreams. I thought maybe it was just a really scary dream that felt real. Iris understood now why. Tommy's drawing was so detailed, so accurate. He hadn't just witnessed a murder. He had studied it with the methodical attention of a child trying to make sense of something incomprehensible. Every line in his drawing was a piece of testimony. Every color choice a clue that could break the case wide open. But as she looked at this brave, observant 7-year-old, Iris felt a chill that had nothing to do with the November weather outside. If the killer suspected that Tommy had witnessed the crime, if they realized that a child's innocent drawing could expose their carefully crafted deception, then both Tommy and his mother were in mortal danger. The hunt for Dr. Helena Voss's killer had just become a race against time. The basement of the 44th precinct held secrets in cardboard boxes and filing cabinets that hadn't seen daylight in decades. Detective Iris Blackwood descended the narrow stairs at 7 a.m., carrying 2 cups of coffee and the key to Dr. Helena Voss's professional life. The victim's patient files, released by court order after 18 hours of legal wrangling, sat in evidence boxes that contained 8 years of carefully documented sessions with some of the Bronx's most troubled children. Ray Morgan was already there, surrounded by manila folders and wearing the grim expression of someone who had spent the night reading about humanity's darkest impulses. I've been through about half of these, he said without looking up. Iris, some of this stuff, it's brutal, child abuse, neglect, sexual assault. This woman saw the worst of what people do to kids. Iris settled into the folding chair across from him, noting how the fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across the documents spread between them. Any patterns? Anyone who might have wanted her silenced? That's just it. There are too many. Dr. Voss didn't just treat these kids. She was legally obligated to report suspected abuse to Child Protective Services. I've counted at least 15 cases in the past 2 years where her testimony led to criminal charges. The files painted a picture of Dr. Voss as something more than a therapist. She had been a crusader, a voice for children who couldn't speak for themselves. Her meticulous notes documented not just psychological treatment, but evidence of abuse that had sent parents, teachers, and family members to prison. She had made enemies, powerful ones, people who had every reason to want her dead. Look at this, Ray said, sliding a thick folder across the table. Rebecca Martinez's daughter, Isabella, been seeing Dr. Voss for 6 months after disclosing sexual abuse by her stepfather. Iris opened the file, her jaw tightening as she read. Judge Rebecca Martinez, known for her tough-on-crime stance and political ambitions, had married real estate developer Carlos Mendez 2 years ago. According to Dr. Voss's notes, 8-year-old Isabella had revealed that her stepfather had been inappropriate with her during overnight visits. The sessions documented a pattern of grooming behavior that escalated over months. Dr. Voss filed a CPS report 3 weeks ago, Iris noted, reading the final entry. Says here she was planning to testify before a grand jury this Friday. A grand jury that would have destroyed Judge Martinez's career and sent her husband to prison, Ray added. That's motive for murder right there. Iris studied the timeline carefully. Dr. Voss had been building a case against Carlos Mendez methodically, professionally, but the legal wheels moved slowly. Too slowly for someone desperate enough to kill. What's Martinez's alibi for Tuesday night? Claims she was in Albany for a judicial conference, but I'm still verifying that. Her husband doesn't have an alibi at all. Says he was home alone, which is convenient. The deeper they dug into Dr. Voss's files, the more complex the web became. Marcus Sterling's son had revealed information about his father's business practices that went far beyond simple bid rigging. According to the therapy notes, 8-year-old Michael had overheard phone conversations about bribing city officials, threatening competitors, and laundering money through shell companies. Dr. Voss had been preparing to turn over her notes to the FBI. She was building cases against half the power structure in the Bronx. Iris muttered, spreading the files across the table in chronological order. Sterling Martinez, and look at this, Dr. Nathan Pierce. The file on Dr. Pierce's involvement wasn't as a suspect, but as a colleague who had been increasingly erratic in his behavior. Dr. Voss had documented several incidents where Pierce had violated professional boundaries, including an inappropriate relationship with a patient's mother and questionable billing practices that bordered on insurance fraud. She was going to report him to the licensing board, Ray observed, reading over her shoulder. That would have ended his career, but it was the final file that made Iris's blood run cold. Sophia Chen had been seeing Dr. Voss not just as Tommy's mother, but as a patient herself. The sessions revealed that Sophia was being blackmailed by someone who knew about her undocumented status. Someone was demanding payments in exchange for not reporting her to Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Look at this entry from last week, Iris said, her voice tight with anger. Sophia told Dr. Voss that the blackmailer had escalated their demands. They wanted information about Dr. Voss's other patients, specifically details about the Sterling and Martinez cases. Ray leaned back in his chair, the implications hitting him like a physical blow. Someone was using Sophia to spy on Dr. Voss's practice, and when Dr. Voss figured it out, she became a liability that had to be eliminated. Iris closed the file, her mind racing. But there's something else. Look at Tommy's appointment time. She pulled out the appointment book they had taken from Dr. Voss's office. Tuesday's final appointment was clearly marked. Tommy C, 5:00 p.m., trauma session. But in the margin, written in different ink, was a notation, urgent, discuss disclosure protocols. Dr. Voss was planning to talk to Tommy about something specific, Iris realized. Something urgent enough to add a note to his regular session. You think she suspected Tommy had witnessed something? Maybe seen the person who was blackmailing his mother? Before Iris could answer, her phone buzzed with a text message. The number was unfamiliar, but the message made her blood freeze. Stop digging or the boy pays. Some secrets should stay buried. Ray saw her expression change and immediately moved closer. What is it? Iris showed him the message, her hands steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. Someone's watching us. Someone knows we're getting close. Could be Sterling, Martinez, Pierce. Any of them have the resources to monitor our investigation. Or it could be someone we haven't identified yet. Someone who's been pulling strings from the shadows this whole time. Iris stood abruptly, gathering the most important files. We need to get Tommy and Sophia into protective custody. Now. But even as she spoke, another thought was forming in her mind. Tommy's drawing had shown remarkable detail about the killer. The blonde hair, the white coat, the careful way they had searched Dr. Voss's office. Details that only someone who had been there could know. But what if Tommy had seen more than just the murder? What if his innocent observations had captured something that could identify not just the killer, but the person who had ordered the hit? As they rushed toward the stairs, leaving the basement full of secrets behind them, Iris felt the case shifting beneath her feet like quicksand. Dr. Helena Voss hadn't just been murdered to silence her. She had been killed to protect a conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of Bronx society, and Tommy Chen, with his crayons and his pure, unfiltered observations, had become the only witness capable of bringing it all down. The question was whether they could protect him long enough to let him tell his story. The protective custody safe house on Randall's Island felt like a fortress against the world. But Detective Iris Blackwood knew that even the strongest walls couldn't protect against betrayal from within. She sat across from Tommy Chen in a sterile conference room, his latest drawing spread between them like a roadmap to the truth. This one was different from the others, more detailed, more deliberate, created with the focused intensity of a child who finally understood that his art could speak for the dead. Sophia Chen watched from a corner chair, her hands twisted in her lap, knowing that her son's next words would either save them or destroy them both. The past 48 hours had revealed the terrible weight of secrets that Dr. Helena Voss had carried, secrets that had cost her life and now threatened theirs. Tommy, Iris said gently, I want you to look at this new drawing and tell me if there's anything else you remember about the person who hurt Dr. Voss. The boy studied his artwork with the seriousness of a forensic analyst. This drawing was a masterpiece of 7-year-old observation, the office rendered in precise detail, the killer's movements tracked across the page like a graphic novel sequence. But it was the final panel that had kept Iris awake for the past 3 nights. The person took off their doctor coat, Tommy said, pointing to a figure near the door. Underneath, they had on regular clothes, and they did something with their hair. What did they do with their hair? They took it off, like a hat but made of hair. Tommy's matter-of-fact delivery made the revelation even more chilling. It wasn't their real hair was dark like my mum's. A wig. The killer had worn a blonde wig to disguise their appearance, then removed it before leaving. Iris felt pieces of the puzzle clicking into place with mechanical precision. Tommy, did you see the person's face when they took off the hair hat? A little bit. When they turned around to look at the bathroom door again, Tommy picked up a brown crayon and began shading in the killer's features with careful strokes. They had a mark here, he said, touching his own cheek, like a scar, but not from getting hurt. The kind that some grown-ups choose to have. A beauty mark or surgical scar. Iris made notes as Tommy continued his meticulous description. And their hands were different colors. Different colors how? Like when I help my mum clean houses. She wears rubber gloves, but underneath her hands are lighter, where the rings usually go, Tommy demonstrated by showing his own small hands. This person had that too, but here, he indicated his ring finger, and here, pointing to his wrist, tan lines. The killer had recently removed jewelry, probably to avoid leaving distinctive marks or scratches on the victim. Everything about this crime spoke of careful planning, meticulous attention to detail. But Tommy's innocent observations were unraveling the killer's perfect scheme thread by thread. Ray. Morgan entered the room carrying a laptop and wearing the grim expression of someone who had just confirmed their worst fears. Iris, we need to talk. Now. They stepped into the hallway, leaving Tommy with a female officer who had been trained in child psychology. Sophia remained in the room, understanding that her presence comforted her son more than any security measure could. The alibi for Judge Martinez checks out, Ray said without preamble. She was definitely in Albany Tuesday. Night, hotel records, dinner receipts, witness statements, all solid. What about her husband? Carlos Mendez is in the wind. Hasn't been seen since Monday night. His lawyer called this morning to say he's exercising his right to remain silent until this misunderstanding is resolved. Iris felt frustration building in her chest. And Sterling? His business meeting alibi is falling apart. I found 3 witnesses who say he left the office at 5:15, not 7 miles like he claimed. But here's the thing. Ray paused, glancing back toward the conference room where Tommy sat drawing. I ran the physical description Tommy gave us through our database. Dark hair, surgical scar on the cheek, specific height and build. And I got a hit, but you're not going to like it. Ray opened the laptop and turned the screen toward her. The database photo showed a woman in her early 40s with dark hair, pulled back in a professional style, and a distinctive beauty mark on her left cheek. The name beneath the photo made Iris's world tilt sideways. Dr. Carmen Rodriguez, the receptionist who had found Dr. Voss's body. She lied about leaving early for a dentist appointment, Ray continued. I checked with the dental office she claimed to visit. No appointment, no record of her ever being a patient there. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Carmen Rodriguez had access to the office, knew Dr. Voss's schedule, understood the security systems. She could have remained in the building after hours without arousing suspicion, staged the crime scene to look like a robbery, then discovered the body to establish her alibi. But why? Iris whispered. What's her motive? That's where it gets complicated. Ray scrolled through additional files on the screen. Carmen Rodriguez isn't just a receptionist. She's also Carlos Mendez's sister, changed her name after a domestic violence conviction 5 years ago. The conspiracy crystallized in Iris's mind like a photograph developing in solution. Carmen had been feeding information about Dr. Voss's patients to her brother, helping him stay ahead of the investigation into his abuse of Isabella Martinez. When Dr. Voss got too close to the truth, when she scheduled that crucial testimony before the grand jury, Carmen had eliminated the threat. She used Sophia Chen's immigration status to force her into spying, Iris realized. But when that wasn't enough, when Dr. Voss was about to testify anyway, she killed her, made it look like a robbery, probably planned to destroy the patient files later. Ray closed the laptop. The only thing she didn't plan for was Tommy being there. A 7-year-old witness with perfect recall and the artistic ability to document everything he saw. Iris looked back toward the conference room where Tommy continued drawing, his young mind processing trauma through the only language he truly understood. Carmen Rodriguez had killed Dr. Helena Voss to protect her brother's secrets, But she had underestimated the power of a child's innocent observation. The hunt was over. Now came the hardest part, making sure Tommy lived long enough to testify. The arrest of Carmen Rodriguez should have felt like victory, but Detective Iris Blackwood stood in the corridor of the Bronx County Courthouse 3 weeks later, with the unsettling sensation that something crucial remained hidden. Tommy Chen sat beside her on a wooden bench, clutching a new drawing he had made specifically for this moment, not of the crime scene, but of Dr. Helena Voss reading to children, surrounded by rainbows and sunshine. His testimony had been flawless, delivered with the simple honesty that only a child could possess. Carmen Rodriguez had confessed within hours of her arrest, the weight of evidence from Tommy's observations making denial impossible. She had killed Dr. Voss to protect her brother, Carlos Mendez, from prosecution, using her position as receptionist to plan the perfect crime. The case was closed, the killer behind bars, justice served. But as Iris watched Tommy carefully color in the clouds on his latest drawing, she couldn't shake the feeling that they had missed something important. Detective Blackwood? Sophia Chen approached hesitantly, carrying an envelope that bore the familiar letterhead of the Wellness Center for Children. This came in the mail yesterday. It's addressed to Tommy, but it's from Dr. Voss. Iris took the envelope, noting the postmark date, mailed the day before Dr. Voss's murder. Inside was a children's book titled The Boy Who Saw Everything, along with a handwritten note in Dr. Voss's careful script. Dear Tommy, thank you for being so brave and helping other children by sharing your truth. Sometimes the most important witnesses are the ones who see with their hearts instead of just their eyes. Keep drawing, keep seeing, keep being exactly who you are. The world needs more people like you. With love and admiration, Dr. Voss. Tommy looked up from his drawing as Iris read the note aloud. She knew, he said simply. She knew I saw things that other people miss. What do you mean, sweetheart? Dr. Voss told me that sometimes grown-ups get so busy with grown-up problems that they forget to notice the little things. But kids notice everything. Tommy picked up a purple crayon and began adding details to his drawing. Like how Ms. Carmen always wore different perfume on the days when she made phone calls she didn't want anyone to hear, or how she would stay late and go through Dr. Voss's desk when she thought no one was watching. Iris felt her breath catch. Tommy, how long had you noticed Ms. Carmen doing these things? Lots of times. She would tell my mum that Dr. Voss wanted to see her after my sessions, but Dr. Voss never asked my mum the questions that Ms. Carmen said she would ask. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Carmen Rodriguez hadn't just killed Dr. Voss to protect her brother. She had been systematically gathering information from multiple patients over months, possibly years. The blackmail scheme involving Sophia Chen was just one thread in a larger web of corruption and exploitation. As they left the courthouse that afternoon, Tommy tugged on Iris's sleeve. Detective Blackwood, I want to show you something. He opened his art notebook to a page she hadn't seen before, a drawing of the courtroom from that morning, complete with the judge, the lawyers, and Carmen Rodriguez at the defendant's table. But in the corner of the drawing, barely visible unless you knew to look for it, was a small figure with dark hair watching from the gallery. Who is that? Iris asked. The person who was crying when Ms. Carmen said she was sorry. They looked scared, like they had secrets too. Iris looked closer at the drawing, then back toward the courthouse. The case of Dr. Helena Voss's murder was closed, but Tommy's innocent observations suggested that the corruption she had died fighting was far from over. Some secrets had been exposed, but others remained buried, waiting for another brave soul to bring them into the light. As they walked into the November afternoon, Iris realized that Tommy Chen would never stop seeing, never stop drawing, never stop bearing witness to the truths that adults preferred to ignore. Dr. Helena Voss's legacy lived on in the boy who saw everything, and in his crayons that could speak for those who no longer had a voice. The murder plot had collapsed because of a child's drawing, but the real victory was that a 7-year-old's courage had ensured it would never happen again.